What if you could own a multi-million-dollar luxury home in Japan without buying the whole thing, and instead of sitting empty most of the year, it generated income when you weren't using it? That's the idea behind Not a Hotel. It's a company commissioning world-class architecture across Japan and selling it through fractional ownership. Each owner gets private access for roughly 30 nights per year. The rest of the time, the property operates as a high-end rental, with the income flowing back to the owners. On paper, it solves one of the biggest inefficiencies in the second home market: beautiful places that go unused. But it also raises a more uncomfortable question. Are you actually owning a piece of extraordinary architecture, or are you mostly buying into the idea of it? In practical terms, what you get is something in between: the intimacy of a private second home and the effortless service of a fully managed luxury stay. And in the next few minutes, we're going to break down how it actually works, why it's nothing like a traditional timeshare, and what you're really getting, including the architecture, the business model, and the trade-offs most people don't think about. Let's start simple, because the concept sounds complicated, but it really isn't. Not a Hotel is a Japanese company founded in 2020 by tech entrepreneur Shinji Hamazu. The concept: commission extraordinary private properties across Japan, but sell them before they're built. Buyers purchase shares from architectural renders. If enough shares sell, construction begins. If they don't, the project is cancelled. According to the company, every project so far has sold out. Instead of selling these properties to a single buyer, ownership is divided. You buy a share that corresponds to roughly 30 nights of private access per year. Shares start in the hundreds of thousands of dollars and climb significantly from there. We'll get into the exact numbers later. But you're not just buying into one building, you're buying into a network. If you own a share in the mountain retreat, you can swap your nights to stay at the oceanfront villa or a penthouse in the city. Via a proprietary app, owners can exchange their stays with other partial homeowners across Not a Hotel's growing portfolio. It changes the value proposition from owning a single vacation home to owning a key to a private countrywide network. The properties are fully managed, hotel style, cleaning, concierge maintenance, all handled. And when you're not there, they operate as boutique rentals, and that rental income flows back to the owners. The word timeshare tends to make a certain kind of person physically recoil, and for good reason. The industry has spent decades building a reputation for aggressive sales tactics, hidden fees, locked-in contracts, and properties that look nothing like the brochure. Reselling a timeshare is notoriously difficult. The design quality is often generic at best, and the fixed-week structure means you're going to the same place at the same time every year, whether you want to or not. Put simply, this is timeshare rebuilt for people who would never buy a timeshare. What actually makes Not a Hotel different is that when you buy in, you own a real estate asset, not just usage rights. That means the share can potentially appreciate in value, rather than depreciate like a traditional timeshare. Your dates are flexible instead of being locked to a fixed week every year. The design is architect commissioned rather than generic resort quality. The owner pool is deliberately small and curated, keeping it exclusive. And because it is properly registered in the Japanese real estate registry, your share can be sold or even inherited like any other property. On paper, it fixes most of what made timeshares unpopular. Whether it avoids every trade-off is a different question, and one we'll answer honestly later. The ownership structure is also genuinely different. Not a Hotel has even experimented with blockchain-based digital tokens to represent property ownership, a move that signals the company is thinking seriously about the asset side of the equation, not just the hospitality side. There are very few buildings in the world that make you feel, the moment you walk in, that everything outside them was slightly less real. These are those buildings. We're not talking about nice interiors or pleasant views. We're talking about spaces that stop you. Architect-designed retreats that read like entries in design publications. But that's not quite right either, because photographs don't fully explain what happens when you're actually standing inside one. Minimalist concrete, raw timber. The way a building can frame a horizon so precisely that the view feels curated, like someone chose it for you. These structures don't sit on their landscapes, they grow out of them, And that distinction between a building placed on a site and a building that belongs to one is something you feel before you can articulate it. The visual language is deeply, specifically Japanese. Wabi-sabi sensibility applied to luxury construction. The idea that beauty lives in imperfection, in impermanence, in the material honesty of a wall that doesn't pretend to be anything other than what it is. Nothing superfluous. Everything intentional. It's the architectural equivalent of a long exhale. This isn't just about owning property. It's about buying into a certain version of how you live. Unhurried, considered, away from the noise. And in a world that seems increasingly allergic to stillness, that might be the most genuinely luxurious thing on offer here. Privacy is built into the concept. These aren't hotels with lobbies and crowds and the low-level performance of being a guest. The properties are private. Yours. You're not sharing the building with strangers. You own part of it. The difference in how that feels is difficult to overstate. Hotel-level service. Without the hotel. Without the compromise. Here's what makes Not a Hotel genuinely different from every other fractional ownership scheme you've ever seen. They're designed by some of the most interesting architects and creative figures working anywhere in the world right now, Japanese and international. Bjarke Ingels, the Danish architect behind some of the most provocative large-scale buildings of the last 2 decades, designed the TOCHIGI retreat, a compound on a coastal peninsula that brings a Scandinavian sensibility into direct dialogue with the Japanese landscape. Fujimoto, one of Japan's most internationally recognized architects, known for structures that blur the line between inside and outside, designed Earth on ISHIGAKI Island in Okinawa, a circular villa with an undulating green roof that gradually merges into the surrounding tropical landscape. And then there's Nigo, Tomoaki Nagao, the fashion designer and creative director who built one of the most influential streetwear brands of the last 30 years. Nigo designed the FUTTSU property on Tokyo Bay, a clifftop retreat with uninterrupted views of Mount Fuji and a private listening room. He later bought a stake in the company, and he wasn't the only one. Pharrell Williams, producer, designer, one of the most culturally connected people on the planet, also invested. When people with that level of taste and access choose to put real money into something, it's worth paying attention to why. Other collaborators include Suppose Design Office, Shinohori, and Snohetta from Norway. This is not a company running out of creative ambition. The standard across every property is consistent. These are commissions, not constructions. Art that you sleep in. The portfolio is deliberately small, with properties spread across very different parts of Japan. On the coast of Miyazaki, architect Shinohori has created a collection of beachfront villas, infinity pools, expansive ocean-facing terraces, and a minimalist design language that refuses to compete with the view. Floor-to-ceiling glazing, minimal interior interruption, and just enough material contrast to keep it from feeling sterile. It's designed to feel isolated, deliberately so, which works, but also means when you're here, you're committing fully to that separation. Further inland, in the NASU area of Tochigi, Suppose Design Office has built something that earns its own category. The exterior is weathered corten steel. The inside opens to panoramic glazing. There's an infinity pool, a sauna, and a natural onsen bath fed from the surrounding landscape. Contemporary architecture and Japan's spa culture in the same building. The level of control is part of what you're paying for. KITAKARUIZAWA gives you 2 very different properties in the same snowy mountain forest. Base, designed by Yosuke Aizawa of White Mountaineering, is a contemporary mountain lodge, precision and restraint. Irori is something else entirely, an 8-bedroom glass retreat that immerses you in the forest, light filtering through the canopy and shifting through the day. Same landscape, completely different relationships with it. In Hokkaido, the focus shifts again, this time to seasonality. In winter, it's all about proximity, direct access to snow, heavy conditions, and a structure that holds up both visually and practically. In summer, the same building opens out to a completely different landscape. Wider views, softer light, less intensity. And then there's the FUTTSU property on Tokyo Bay, arguably the most culturally loaded commission in the portfolio. Designed by Nigo, the FUTTSU clifftop retreat has high-ceiling rooms positioned around uninterrupted views of Tokyo Bay and Mount Fuji. There's a private listening room, a traditional tea space, and an infinity pool that dissolves into the horizon. On ISHIGAKI Island in Okinawa, Fujimoto has designed Earth, the property that most clearly articulates what not a hotel is reaching for. The structure is circular, the roof undulates, and gradually gives way to a green surface that merges with the tropical landscape around it. The building doesn't sit on the island, it grows from it. At this level, proportion, placement and restraint are doing all the work. But with entry prices starting in the hundreds of thousands of dollars and the architectural stakes this high, we have to move past the aesthetics. Is this actually a sound investment, or just a very expensive club? That depends on how honestly you answer a few questions. Let's also talk numbers. Entry-level shares typically start from around 70 to 80 million yen, roughly $450,000 to $550,000 for 30 nights of access per year in smaller properties. Flagship properties, like the Nigo-designed Tokyo Bay house, run significantly higher, with some shares priced well into the millions of dollars. That context matters for everything that follows. The rental income is contingent on demand. Not a hotel properties are exceptional, and Japan's luxury travel market is strong. But rental income potential is not the same as guaranteed returns. Anyone buying in should run their own numbers. Selling your share is also a genuine consideration. The resale market for fractional luxury real estate in Japan is not deeply liquid. Exiting isn't as simple as listing on a marketplace. The tokenization experiments are partly aimed at solving this, but it isn't solved yet. And then there's the usage question. 30 nights per year sounds generous until life intervenes. Work, family, other travel. The honest average usage across fractional ownership models of any kind tends to be lower than buyers anticipate. If your share sits mostly unused, the rental income helps offset the cost. But it's worth asking yourself clearly, how often would you actually go? The concept is compelling. The execution is impressive, but the margin for a bad decision here is very real. I'll be direct with you. I think not a hotel is one of the most interesting things happening in architecture right now. Not because of the ownership structure, but because of what the buildings themselves represent. A belief that design matters enough to protect, that a site deserves an architect who actually understands it, that luxury at its best should be quiet. But there's a broader context worth holding on to. Japan is currently facing an IKEA crisis. Millions of abandoned homes sitting empty, slowly returning to the landscape. Not a hotel isn't solving that directly, but their instinct points at the same problem. The deep inefficiency of beautiful places that go unused. Houses that exist for 11 months of the year as monuments to absence. What they're really asking is, what if we built the second home market from scratch? For people who care about design, privacy and flexibility, without the compromises that have always made it either inaccessible or unpleasant? I think that question is long overdue, and Japan, with its architecture culture, its landscape diversity, and its particular sensitivity to impermanence, was exactly the right place to try answering it. But this is not for everyone. If you want simplicity, full ownership, or guaranteed returns, this probably isn't it. But if you value design, flexibility, and access over permanence, it might be one of the most compelling models out there. Whether the financial model works will take time. The buildings, though, are already remarkable, and they'll outlast the model itself. My honest recommendation, if you're ever in Japan, find a way to see one of these properties in person, not to buy, just to understand what's possible when architecture takes itself seriously. And if that idea, architecture as something that actually matters, resonates with you, I'd love for you to stick around on this channel. We look at buildings, construction, and design the same way, seriously, carefully, and with a lot of respect for the people making them. Subscribe if that's the kind of thing you want more of. I think you'll find it here.